Hey, hey,
So, Stephen, hello.
how you doing?
I'm pretty excellent. How are you?
I am doing so great. Oh my
It's so
God.
nice to
Lauren,
see.
long time no see.
Yes, I used to
Yeah,
see you all the time.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I have a ukulele growing out of my head here. Let me move that.
Growing up. Oh, that's
Oh
funny.
man, how you been?
I've been pretty excellent.
Great.
Where are you?
I am in my office at Power Station at Berklee NYC in New York in Hell's
Uh,
Kitchen.
There you go. Well, that looks pretty marvelous. I'm definitely going to have to come and visit.
Yeah, you got to come down.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and you're in your studio, obviously. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In the basement.
Remind me the console that you have behind you there?
Oh, that's an Audient 4816.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I remember when you were getting that. That's cool.
It's analog. It's fun.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't take up as much space as the big Studio Master did at the time, but in those days it was hard to be hybrid. It was very expensive. Now it's not as expensive as so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So
Well,
the console is totally analog then?
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of back and forth. I mean, I still have the Logic setup and digital setup all happening over on this side, and
Mhm.
then there's a tape machine back there, a one
Right,
inch.
right.
And so I could be
Fun.
either completely analog, hybrid, or completely
So you have an analog multi-track then? Is that a 16 track behind
Yeah,
you?
that's a 1
Oh,
inch,
cool. Oh,
M
fun. Well, that's all
MS-16.
sorts of fun.
I know, it's like, well, the first album I made, you remember,
Yeah.
Among the Ruins, the Two True record,
Mhm.
was done on a half-inch 8-track and all those
Yeah.
virtual tracks.
Man, I used to do a lot of damage on a
Was it?
on a 1 inch gosh, what, I guess it was a 16 track, or was it a 24 track? No, I guess it was a 16 track. Yeah. For years, man, I made so many records on that machine. It was, it
Yeah,
was before DAW 88s and
yeah,
ADATs and Pro Tools and all that stuff,
right. And
Um,
what did you first start multi-tracking on? Because I was going cassette deck to cassette deck.
well, the very first was a Sony 2 track reel to reel that had sound on sound, quarter inch.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, yeah. And my buddy Brent Davis and I made so many recordings. It was the total Les Paul thing where you had to plan out what was the most important thing and do that last, you know,
Right.
because you'd go down a generation every time you ping pong back and forth. But we would go back and forth like 10 times, and it
Oh,
was
yeah.
it was such a learning experience, I have to say. It would probably be very distressing to actually hear some of those recordings we made at this point. I don't think I still have them, but
I
but
I
man,
definitely still
we
have
learned.
mine.
Yeah.
You
And
do, you learn so much, and,
yeah.
then I went to a quarter inch reel to reel, the TAC
Yeah.
A2340 with
Yep.
the 7.5 inch reels, and that was a
Right.
blast for the
Oh,
longest
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah, I went to, cassettes, I guess, for a while after that, after the quarter inch back and forth thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, no, I had a quarter inch, yeah, that's right. Had a quarter inch 4 track, Tascam 4 track. I had the 4 track, and then the 2 track for mix down, and the little Tascam mixer in the middle, the kind of
Oh,
standard
cool.
issue of home studio back before there was really home studios, like the
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so
Can you
I did a lot with that before cassette, and then when cassette, I remember my first Fostex cassette, 4 track after that, and
Oh, great.
and then started getting back into the larger formats.
Could you believe how popular it's become for everybody to wanna make a record and record at home? I mean, I was such a weirdo. My family thought I was odd, they still do.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't have any friends that were doing this. The couple that wanted to
yeah.
help me didn't even go into music, so it's like,
Right.
where did all these cool people come from that are interested in this?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that. I just know that there are a lot of people who want to do that, and of course, sorry about the somebody's got something to say out there. Um,
not
You know,
coming
what's
through.
funny about it too is that I don't know if this is funny, but it's ironic, is that now that everybody wants to do it now when it's much less lucrative than it used to be. It's like the value of recorded music, the return on investment has gone way down, and way more people want to do it too,
It's
and
crazy unfortunate, yeah.
yeah, it is crazy unfortunate, and I think that's cyclical. I think that both of those things are going to change, but yeah,
When
I
does
think,
it come around so that artists are as appreciated as athletes?
yeah, well, at the very top level, I think they are, I mean,
Mm,
at the international superstar, you know, Beyonce, Billie Eilish level, I think they
that's
are
true. If you
respect.
compare
Yeah,
levels.
but professional athletics has a much longer tail, and part of it might be that there's teams, like there's if you watch Ted Lasso, there's a whole
Right.
there's this whole team of guys who are making ridiculous dough, because they've been able to figure out, that that's what's driving the people. But it's, yeah, our industry is, you know, it's been plagued by bad leadership, and and frankly just corruption. I mean, just absolute downright corruption.
Oh, oh
Um
yeah.
and it hasn't ever gotten cleaned up. And also, I think our industry has really lost its, well, the people, how do I say this accurately? Um the folks who should be minding the store, who, and many of them are friends of mine. I know a lot of record company presidents and things like that, and they're good people, and I will say that they're good people, but they don't see themselves as having the responsibility for the ecosystem that I believe they should.
Hmm.
And the music industry just convinced itself so early on that they had nothing, they had no idea what to do with the internet, and that still pervades, if you think about it. Well, it does, because they're happier to kind of make begrudging, well, not now, they're not even begrudging, they're cronyism is back, as long as Spotify sends them a check for $150 million, every quarter, they're fine. It's like, oh, okay, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. But I'm thinking, I mean, how many TV subscriptions do you have? How many,
Very, very few.
like, do you have any? Do you have Netflix?
I have Netflix.
Do
Every
you
once
have,
in a while, depending upon what's happening, I get Hulu or I'll get Showtime or,
right?
but yeah, I have very few.
Okay. Do you have Disney?
Once in a while, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. But see,
Movies on
here's
there.
the thing.
I got Disney.
The recording industry, if they had the confidence, or the recorded music distribution industry, I guess I should say, the labels, if they had the confidence, um that the the makers of visual content had, then Universal would have their own streaming services, their own streaming service, and Warner would have their own streaming service, and EMI would have their own streaming service, and they would say, you want to listen to the Beatles? No, you can't get it on Netflix. No, you can't get it on Tidal. You got to subscribe to this. And that's what Disney did. They're just like, no, we're not going to be on Netflix anymore. We're not going to be on Hulu. You want Disney, you got to do this. And I don't even know how many streaming services I subscribe to. 5, 7,
Right.
maybe. And I'm a musician, and I subscribe to one music streaming service and only pay him like $14.99 a month. I'm paying
That's
10
a really
times as
good point.
much for streaming
Yeah,
services, for
really good
visual
point.
content than I am for music, but I'm probably listening to music way more, so
And,
it
and
just,
have you told them this? I'm sure you've had
oh
these
yeah, oh yeah,
discussions.
we fight about it all the time. Again, they're friends of mine, they're good people, they're biding their time till retirement, they're making plenty of dough. The record companies have been decimated. There's, a third of, a quarter to a third of the people working there that were working there, in the 90s.
Wow.
And as long as they're making, you know, their million and a half a year or whatever, they're fine. They're just like, they feel it's one of those things. I love the expression, they were born on third base and think they hit a triple, they're just, they just took over this thing. And why buck the system? Why change it? It would be a lot of trouble. It would be a lot of trouble to change it. But it makes me mad every time they say, oh, recorded music is back up to being a $60 billion a year industry. Forget that. It should be $1 trillion a year industry. If you think about
Mhm.
how important it is to
Yeah,
people, you
yeah,
know,
to our souls.
Twitter sold for $44 billion. Come on. You're saying
Wow.
our whole industry is worth, just a little more than Twitter was. The entire industry, that's about the size of lipstick, not cosmetics, but lipstick, you know. And think about what's more important in the culture, lipstick or music. Um,
This is what I've always loved about you, is that there's this artist side, a passionate creator who's also very smart,
well,
and knows how to have fun with the business,
yeah.
And so you merge these things, but you haven't forgotten any of those talents. You haven't forgotten any of those strengths, and you bring them all to everything that you're doing.
Aw, shucks. Well, you too, man. I mean, what I love about you is that you're constantly creating and you're just, getting better all the time. I love the stuff that you do. And every time I get I see that you've created something new. I can't wait to hear it. It's just like, oh man, what's Lauren come up with this time? And it's so important, I think, to live a creative life if indeed that's what you're called to do, if you're a creator.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. You were one of the very few people in the early days of Too True that was super encouraging and helped me keep going with
Oh,
that encouragement, because a lot of people are like, what are you doing? Like, you're not a professional recording engineer. You're not going to be, uh, well, there are some people, even my uncle, one of my uncles had said, well, you got to decide now that you're 9 years old and you're singing and playing guitar. Which one are you going to do? Are you going to sing or are you going to play?
really? Wow.
And you were the one that had said that I had a nice way of keeping the vision from like a tiny idea to the
Yeah.
finished record, and I never even thought of it as several different hats and
Yeah.
positions. And of course, I would love to work with all those different experts, and
Sure.
have them make something even more of one
Mhm.
of my songs. But who has the opportunity to do that on a regular basis,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it was not only necessity, but it was in a very deep curiosity.
yeah.
It's fun.
That's cool, man. I mean, I think it's all about following your curiosity.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna create I think what you're meant to create. And
Really learning.
and some people aren't interested in the technical side, and that's fine too. That's totally
Oh,
fine. But
sure. Yeah.
but if you are, it does help you manifest your vision in a way that you can do without compromising, and
I
without
like that part a lot,
yeah, yeah.
because I always think of it in terms of my brothers. Both my brothers are graphic artists, and
Mhm.
they both paint and do all kinds of visual creations. And if I was a painter, and every time I wanted to put a color somewhere or a particular image,
Right.
someone else was drawing it,
Yeah.
there's such a disconnect in
It is.
trying to tell them what is in my head versus what I want to see. And
Yeah.
I thought, why should there be that middle person?
Right. Right.
Especially if you love the gear,
Yeah. Yeah. If
especially if
you're
you
if
love
you're
playing
if
with the toys.
I mean, come on, you and I are both big old nerds. I mean, it's just, that's part of the fun, is getting into the
Absolutely.
getting into the specs and plugging everything in and making sure it works and troubleshooting and all that kind of stuff. It's fun,
Yeah.
it's fun.
And because you do it all, you understand also the fact that, because sometimes if I watch a certain teaching video, you'll have an expert producer saying, you don't need all this
Hmm.
and you don't need that. And you
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
because most of the time they're just mixing.
Hmm.
You're getting beautiful tracks. It's like,
Right.
but I'm also writing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to be able to reach everything. I have to get
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
guitars and the
Sure.
piano and the
Sure.
drums because sometimes I'm the whole band,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to set up the mics and to
Oh
make
yeah.
noise and
Gear can be inspiration too, to have, that's one thing, like maybe you can't afford, or there, it's a lot to hire an engineer to be there all the time, especially when you're writing. Um, but if you think about it, if you buy like, an LA3A, or you buy an EQ or a compressor or something like that, all those engineers have done all the work ahead of time and they've gone here, you know now you can have this, and just, it's like I was here. I mean, back in the early days, in the 50s and 60s, if you wanted to have a recording studio, the first thing you had to do is hire engineers to build a console for you. There was no
wow.
such thing
Right.
as console manufacturers. It was like,
Wow.
they would build them, and that's where all those companies came from. UA, but it was,
I didn't
so
realize
now
that.
now we don't have to huddle with the engineers just to get them to build a console or a compressor or a microphone or something like that. um
But you've actually been building professional rooms too and
oh
for
yeah,
in
yeah, I love
studios.
doing that. That's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that.
Wow.
Where I'm getting to do that some right now. We're building a new studio slash classroom down on the lower level here at Power Station. And so yeah, so I get to flex that muscle a little bit again, just to get
That's
the
so
acoustic
cool.
treatment there. And we're putting in one of those new SSL, is it Odyssey, is that what they call it?
We
The maybe it's not the Odyssey, something like that. Anyway, it's their new like $50,000 console that is all analog, which at this point I feel like, you know consoles, for my purposes at least. I mean, I know if you're out in the field and you need to do a lot of recalls and stuff like that, it's a totally different thing. But we at Power Station here, we have five consoles of some size. We have the Neve 8081 or 8088 down in Studio A, which has no microprocessors on it whatsoever. It was built in 1981, and it was the last one they made. They actually had to retool up to make it one more, to make one more. But and then we've got, like an SSL, 9K, and we've got a Neve VR, and we've got an SSL G plus, and then we've got an Avid, um in the other room, the S5, I guess, or S6, which is of course
cool.
entirely digital. But right now, any console I would buy today, I would buy a 100% analog console,
Why?
because, the minute you put a microprocessor with software on it into something, you're dooming it to obsolescence in, in 18 months. And to put
Yeah.
that into something that costs $500,000, is lunacy.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you just are made of dough, but all these consoles I name, we're keeping them running. They've been obsolete, quote unquote, for decades, but the clients still love them. And the VR and the 9K, we have entire other consoles in storage, like having a Chevy in your backyard up on blocks. It's like, just we got them for parts, because if,
Yeah.
if any of the IC chips go out, you can't buy those things. I mean, you got to pull them off another console. So it's pretty
I
crazy.
feel like that stuff should come back. I mean, I've written to Tascam a few times. There are so many of my students that would love to play with a tape machine. It's
Yeah,
like you're
yeah.
missing out, even just the market at Berklee alone,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm,
And I have two channels of a Neve VR,
mhm.
and it's just fantastic. But I've got the 1073, and then I've got some fake 1073s. I have
Yeah.
the Portico
Oh,
Neve,
nice.
the NBP, and the two channel. And I have trouble telling the difference between the Portico 2 recording channel, the Neve VR, and the 1073s. I mean, they're very, very similar.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, so what else could I do with money?
Well, it's a good thing you got all 3 then. So,
Well, that was the thing. Like you started to sound like you were going to say before. It's like I could pay all these people once, or I could buy the gear and have it for
right.
my
Yep.
whole life.
Sure.
So I've always preferred the gear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's interesting. I do have friends. Well, a a couple thoughts on that are just random thoughts. I have a couple friends who are wealthy, who have who I've designed studios for over the years, and and both of them, well, yeah. Okay. Well, one of them in particular, he would build a studio. He would spend ridiculous amounts of money, digging down into into the bedrock and to make the ceiling higher and doing all this stuff. And then he would wind up moving like 3 or 4 years later, after spending, millions of dollars building a studio. And he did this a couple times, and then I know other people have done similar things. So, I do have to say, when he was having me design his third studio, I was like, you could go rent the nicest hotel in London and rent out Abbey Road for a month with what we were spending on the studio, and maybe
Wow.
a more enjoyable experience. I mean, so
What did he say?
he was like, "Yeah, don't say that. Don't tell my wife."
That's fantastic. Wow. What are some of the things that are your favorite things? Like, what's a new thing that you're learning right now or doing to stay happy and keep renewing yourself? Because
Okay,
you've
so
gone through so many cool phases in your whole artistic career. You just keep reinventing yourself.
I'm going through a very strange phase right now, actually. So during the pandemic, I got to thinking about the fact that, I love to perform, I love to write, I love to play gigs. Um, but I don't really like dragging gear around that much, And that was starting to kind of keep me from playing more, because I think, like you, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I think you and I are kind of similar in that, and I know that you were solving it for a while with like virtual guitar amps and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
was always the guy in the band that took the longest to set up. I would bring way too many guitars and basses and banjos and mandolins and keyboards and turntables, and it's just like it just I would just it would take me hours to set up.
Yeah.
Um and I got to thinking, what if I took this time to try and, what would it look like to do something different? So I got a really great ukulele, and
Cool.
I decided I was going to write enough songs to put out a ukulele album and be able to play an entire set with just me and the ukulele. And
Oh, that's great.
that's it. Just put those limitations on. Um
George Harrison would be very proud of you.
yeah, I tell you, yeah. It
He
was
was
like
a giant ukulele fan.
oh, is that right? Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, he was incredible player too.
Wow. Who is that?
George Harrison.
Oh, George. Yeah, yeah. George loved, yeah, uke. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, so that's what I've been doing. I've been writing a bunch of songs. I've probably written 14, 15 songs um
Wow.
on the uke, and I've been performing out. I've been playing lots of gigs on ukulele. And I've started the album, which I need to just, man, I need a deadline. So maybe we need a deadline. But it's all the songs that I've written lately on the ukulele. So the working title is Ukelately. Um, and
That's perfect.
yeah, in fact, I'm going to write a song today. I walked by Lincoln Center a couple nights ago. I was up in a friend who is a former student of mine. Um, was playing up at the she's from Colombia, and she and her trio were playing at the atrium up in at Lincoln Center. And so I walked up there and to see her and greet her and everything. And then I was walking back, and outside at Lincoln Center on the main campus, they have this summer series that's free and open to the public. And they had these disco bands, which was so much fun. I mean, I was walking, I walked in there to see what was going on. And this was like Soul Train from the 70s stars. They're all enormous and had been singing these hits for decades. but man, the people were just so happy and everybody dancing as all ages, and it was just, I mean, I had a Disco Sucks t-shirt when I was, in college. I didn't get it. I just did not get disco at the time. I was more into, I was just the typical, who you might expect me to be. I was into Zeppelin and, all the artists that you would have been into if you were my age at that time. And so but I've grown to really enjoy disco. I mean, I've also gotten to know Nile Rodgers.
Mm,
I mean, Power Station is where, most of the disco hits in the US at least were made. I mean, they did
yeah,
all the Chic records here, Freak
right.
Out and Celebrate, and of course, and David Bowie came here to do Let's Dance. I mean, his kind of foray into the genre. And it's so anyway,
It's
I'm just
fantastic.
thinking, it inspired me to go, you know what, you should probably write a title song for this album, Ukelately, and it should be a disco record, man. It
Oh,
should,
that's funny.
it should be like in a disco style, because I mean, because I'm writing the whole album, I've been thinking about, feels and time signatures and keys, and trying to have a whole arc, as I'm sure you do as well. And so I don't
Yeah,
really
you don't want them all to
funky,
sound the same.
yeah, I don't really have a funky disco-y of tune yet. So I'm thinking I'll do that. I'll write
So
that.
the album isn't solo ukulele.
Well, it could be. I'm thinking about, since it's so easy to put stuff out now, I'm thinking about doing
Hmm.
one version that is totally solo uke and voice. Um, and then also do a version where I can, I add some other instruments. And I actually, when I was down in Nashville in March, I added drums to a couple of the tracks. I have a really good friend who's a producer and a drummer down there, who's again a former student of mine, Caleb Gilbreth. And I was thinking, when I'm down here, I should do a session. We should add some drums. So there's one tune that's kind of it was inspired by my partner Annette Phillip, who's from India, and she went back to India, and her mom makes this fried fish, and they live down south in Kerala and all that. So it wound up being a Cajun tune. It wound up being kind of an Indian Cajun tune, and I had
Wow.
Caleb put drums on that. And then there's another one that was kind of I actually wrote it in Florida while I was in quarantine. I went down to Florida during the pandemic, or a little after the pandemic, to I was invited to go visit Full Sail down there, and so I went down there, and I like to say I was greeted at the airport by Ron DeSantis, and he handed me a handgun and sprayed me with COVID. So I immediately got COVID as soon as I got down to Florida, and
Oh
and
my goodness.
I was down there. I had to cancel everything, and
Oh,
and
terrible.
quarantine. But I wrote the song that was kind of about coming out of the pandemic, and the inspiration for that one was kind of Down in the Corner by Credence. Just
Okay.
kind of a celebration of just life and music. Stuff like that. So anyway, I had Caleb play on that one too. So I might release
Oh, super
I might release some of them.
version.
Is kind of just solo uke, and then also more fleshed out.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
we'll see.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the case if I've done a show, guitar and vocal, that the song is self-contained and it works.
Yeah.
And then anything else is pretty much icing,
Yeah.
because
Right.
the song is solid.
If it doesn't work, yeah, if it doesn't work with just an instrument and a voice. I mean, and I guess I should make a sweeping statement like that. There are some songs that, certainly the production and everything have a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
But if you
some
strip it
styles.
away, even some of those songs, it's fun to strip them totally away. And, like I love it when people do, just solo guitar and voice versions of like Max Martin hits and stuff like that, that are, that could be really, it's like, wait a minute, where is it? Where did I hear this song? And you think you just are so used to hearing the whole production that it kind of takes you by surprise. And Max Martin's hits, they actually hold up really well as just,
Sure,
folk songs or whatever.
that's super
Cool.
cool.
What are you working on right now? What do you got going on?
Well, I just released an album called Snowcake, and there was
Yeah.
a whole bunch of new songs that I had. I mean, I like to write on a regular basis anyway, and keep writing because it's just
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It's like playing with magic, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing there, and then within an hour, something's happening, and you go, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you stick with it, it starts getting its own heartbeat, and then all of a sudden, it's this thing in the world, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Wow, where did this even come from? This is the
Exactly.
coolest thing ever," you know.
Yeah.
So there's a song uh, on the, I think it was the previous record, or was it on this one, uh, called Seasonal Blues. I think it was on the last one,
Oh, interesting.
but
Okay.
that was written during the pandemic because it was like, you know, you can't go anywhere for the holidays or whatever. So it was a fun one to do.
Right. Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Boy, I
But,
bet you
you know,
were. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, you know, the Beatles Get Back was such an amazing batch of hours that I never
Hmm.
wanted to end and keep watching. And I just thought, what can I do in January? And there was this one January that was coming up right after I had watched that particular
Yeah.
show. And I just thought, you know, they were on the roof and doing that whole album in January. My January is coming. It's one of the longest months. So there's an idea. Why don't I try to see how many songs I can write in 1 month?
Oh, that's cool.
Because I've never done that before,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Because Stevie Wonder used to write a song a day, and I used to think,
Right.
"Oh, that's intense." But I ended up with 23 songs or
Oh,
something that I
that's
liked,
great.
and again,
Wow. Good for
releasing it every
you.
day. But
That's an
it
excellent
was a
goal.
blast. So a lot of them are on that
Uh-huh.
on this new album,
Yeah.
Snowcake, and some of them are on the ones before, Just Like Earth. It was another title that I had released, and it was just such a blast to make
Yeah.
them, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so great, man. That's a. I've never done that. Tried to write a song a day for a month. That's a great challenge, though, isn't it? That's a really
Well,
good.
it was instead of each day, it was how many can I write this
Yeah. How
month? And I
many?
thought
How many? Yeah. So
if
you
I
could
could
start a whole
pick,
bunch of them at once and kind of have them all growing at different. Have
you
them in
could, yeah,
pots and water each one. You know,
right.
when you feel
But I
them.
liked that there was no pressure then, in a sense, you know, because it was like it's a big month, 31 days,
Yeah.
and
Right.
if I missed a couple days, there's still the potential of having more this month than in
Yeah.
February,
Then
let's
any
say.
other month. Yeah. How many songs do you think you've written over your career, that you've brought to at least the kind of fleshed out work tape stage or
Oh,
demos?
that are actually released.
They're not released, but
Uh,
no, just recorded at least.
well, I don't have masters hanging around. I mean, since everything went digital and we could upload stuff
Yeah.
quickly, that was a nice, inexpensive way to just start getting things out everywhere. Because I
Uh-huh.
used to have two national distributors and a radio promoter and a
Yeah. And
publicist and all that stuff. And, you know, you don't really need any of that much anymore. So the amount of songs that are out there are
mhm.
quite a few.
Yeah.
I think I've probably written over 400 songs in my
Uh-huh.
life,
Uh-huh.
and only maybe half of them are out in the world. So
Okay. So a couple hundred. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
there's
great.
definitely a lot to get to and a lot that are already out there. And I'm always writing more. So I might start a list and say, okay, these 10 are going to be on the next one. But it
Right.
turns out so often that they get swapped out because something
Sure,
else is
sure. Yeah, something else
writing
will
as well.
come. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear
Yeah,
you. I hear you.
yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Well,
What about you? I mean, you must have a ton of stuff too,
oh
and
man,
in
I
all
have
different
so many.
styles because you do classical
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
turntable and
Yeah, yeah, it's true, yeah.
guitar,
I
now
did a
ukulele.
right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, and all the more reason, I gotta get this ukulele record out because I actually kinda wanna get back to other things, and I'm kinda making myself not do it until I get this project done. So,
Okay,
I need a deadline, I really need a deadline, but I've gotten a lot of them recorded and cranked out and, in the studio here, just the uke and vocal versions.
cool.
Um, but yeah, I've been it's kind of funny because I think what's funny to me is that, I go play gigs now here in New York, and with just my uke. And of course, it's so freeing. I mean, I literally can do a sound check in like 30 seconds,
It's
or
like showing up with a toothbrush. You know,
yeah,
it's like
exactly.
I'm
But
ready to go.
the uke I have has a really great pickup in it, and I 3 times now I've plugged it in at like the cutting room or at like a, over in Brooklyn, a rooftop place that I played over there. And the sound man will just say, "That's the best sounding uke I've ever heard in my life," and which is not saying much. I realize, it's like saying, "Man, you look really good for being in the ICU," but but it's got a really great pickup. I actually, the other great thing about playing ukulele is that they're so damn cheap. I actually, once I kind of decided to do this, I thought, okay, I have a nice uke, but it doesn't have a pickup in it, and so if I'm going to play live, I need to have a uke with a pickup, because you just never know if you're going to be able to be heard if it's just an acoustic instrument. So I went online and thought, okay, I'm gonna, money's no object, man. I'm gonna buy the best uke with a pickup, reviews, everything online that I could possibly find. And I wound up spending like $599.
Right.
That's like the pinnacle, It's like, hot damn, I
That's
chose the
great.
right instrument, man. This is
Yeah, you did.
great.
I know. I had Sandra Kott come over to play violin once a bunch of years ago, and she came in carrying a bag of things, and she had her violin. And I reached for the violin to help her get up the staircase we
Yeah.
were going to, and she went, "Oh no,
No, no, yeah,
no one else
yeah,
carries this.
yeah, yeah.
This
It's
cost
probably, oh
$250,000.
my
It's paid
God.
off, and my house
Oh
is not,
my
and no one else
God.
carries this."
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
I
"I'm
know. I
so
mean,
glad I play guitar."
oh man, I know. Yeah, guitar, compared to, like, violins and cellos and all that kind of stuff. Guitars are so cheap. I mean, if you think about it, what could you possibly spend on a Strat? I mean, you probably couldn't spend more than $10,000 on a Strat if you wanted to, unless it was you're paying for the the just the fact that it was an original 58 or something, a collector's item. If it wasn't a collector's item, it was a working musician's instrument.
Belong to
But
somebody, yeah.
you could, I mean, just to get a good student cello, as someone whose daughter plays cello, it's like 15 grand or something like that. I'm thinking, man, you know what I mean? How many great guitars I can buy for 15 grand?
I know, I know. And it's funny because when Pat Metheny had come over, I didn't have a nylon string at the time to do that audition. And he said, I rented one. He's like, "You got to have a nylon string and a steel string." And we just
Mhm.
kept swapping back and forth playing different songs of his.
Oh,
And
cool.
he said to me, "Can you tell the difference between a $50 nylon string guitar and a $50,000 nylon string guitar?" And I said, "No, I can't." He said, "Neither can I." And of course,
Love
I've
it.
never played a $50,000
No,
nylon
I don't
string
think I
guitar,
have either. And I have
but
a feeling I will.
I know
Yeah.
what he means, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, it is. There's diminishing returns. And I
Well,
guess,
Fender came out with that paint job of George Harrison's, right? They wanted to reproduce the Rocky Strat, the colored one that George painted for Magical Mystery Tour.
oh, interesting.
And that was probably about 20 years ago when it first came out as like a custom shop special. Here's the
Yeah.
Rocky Strat. And they wanted 7 grand for what was his own self-done paint job. And I thought, he painted it himself with his wife's nail polish and a couple of day glow paints. I can do that, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I did. I
Oh,
started,
that's great. I love
yeah, I
that.
painted. Yeah, did you ever see that
No,
picture of
let me
that?
see it. I want to see it. I want to see it.
This was my off-white Strat that I got when I was 14 years
Oh
old,
man, I love that. Oh,
graduating
that's so great.
graduating from grammar school. It's like, "What do you want? 10-speed bike? All your friends are getting a 10-speed bike." It's like, "No, I want
Right.
a Fender Strat."
Yeah. That's
It's my
great.
Fender Strat from '74, and so
Wow.
started with his idea, but I went a little crazier.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
break
No,
that.
that's great. You got to customize it, make it your own, man.
It
Well,
is. It's the El Pass model there,
the L Pass,
and
I love it.
you know how the nut width makes such a difference for
Yeah,
guitars players because this is only
right.
so big.
Yeah.
This width here, it's got to fit, and by the time you get up the neck, it's completely out of hand if you're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
too wide. My limit is usually 1 and 11/16 if I really want to be able to play that
Oh,
instrument.
interesting. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I have a few that are a little bigger, but I don't play them as
Mm-hmm.
much or use them for everything. But this one is 1 and 6/16.
Oh, no
It's the
kidding.
tiniest nut on a Strat I have ever seen
Wow, how
and
cool.
ever come across. Yeah, so it's pretty cool, and
Oh, that's
it's super
great.
light, and I've always
Yeah,
loved it.
man,
And
I love the
written
the
a lot of
lightness of
songs on it.
Strat. I spent like
Yeah.
10 years, the 10 years that I was touring all the time and, playing, you know, 6 to 10 gigs a week, I was still playing a Les Paul that weighed 14 pounds.
Oh
And
my God.
I know it was so heavy. I finally started switching off with the Strat, and I remember just, playing my bandmate Strat and just going, "Holy cow, this is so light. What am I doing? What the heck am I doing here?" So it was
You have
like,
to suffer to be a musician.
I know, I know, man. I'd be getting these super thick, straps just to spread the pain across my back a little bit more.
Yeah,
But
there are a couple that do both, and you can kind of distribute the weight.
yeah, yeah. But I still have my old Les Paul. It's a 71 Les Paul Deluxe, Sunburst, which is,
You could put it on one of those stands that just has it up at the right height and
yeah,
just
you
walk up
could.
behind it at
Yeah,
the
you
gig and
could.
play it
That's true.
and
That's
keep
true.
the other one on that's light.
Yeah, yeah. I use it for slide now mostly. I just play slide on it.
I
So it's
love
it's
slide.
a color guitar. But I'm thinking
What
about
kind of
here's I could use some advice actually. I want to buy, I've got right over here, I've got my 63 Strat. That has been totally, Frankenstein. It's got it had already been kind of Frankenstein when I bought it. I bought it at the Dallas Guitar Show probably 30 years ago or something. And it's got EMG pickups on it. It's got, I mean, it's not gonna sell as a collector's item or anything like that, but it's lovely and it's very light and I love it and I love the neck and all that. But I'm thinking I should get a a modern, just fabulous Stratocaster. And it doesn't have to be a Fender. It doesn't have to be an actual Strat. It could be one of these, boutique ones. And I've played some boutique ones, in different places.
right.
What's your favorite Strat these days? A modern, like currently available in manufacturing, you know, so you don't have any, there's no problems or vintage things or wiring stuff you got to fix, just to something that you could just get set up really nicely and go off to the races with it. What would you recommend I check out?
I haven't known what they're releasing lately, but every piece of wood is different. Even if you order the
Hmm.
same model, the neck is different. Sometimes the body weight is different. So I think you'd want to sort of have a checklist of the things that you like
Hmm.
best. If you have a certain nut width you prefer,
Yeah.
certain weight you're looking for, certain kind of neck. And I didn't realize when I was a young kid that the frets themselves could be
Oh yeah.
different heights and widths. And I mean, there's a couple of Gibsons I had tried because there's so many guitars that I try through the mail because they're not in the shops when I want to buy them.
Right.
That when I did a glissando down one string, up one string, it sounded like a piano. Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah,
ding, ding, ding,
yeah,
ding,
yeah,
because the
yeah,
frets were too high and I didn't have
yeah,
enough finger flesh to
yeah,
smooth it out. So I was like,
yeah,
okay, these frets are not going to work for me.
yeah.
So I would make sure you have all those
Yeah,
things
yeah,
first, and then, as George was told by Ry Cooder, you put on a little bit of a heavier gauge, and you put the action up a little higher to get a good sound out of the
sure.
slide. But
Yeah.
what kind of material slide are you using?
I use a glass slide. I use a glass
Medium
slide
weight?
most of the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite
And
one.
I've got a bunch of them. I mean, I've got a brass one. I've got, or at least a
Yeah,
couple. I've got more slides than you can shake a stick at. But I usually just grab I usually grab
the
the
medium weight.
yeah, the just the glass slide.
I have a ceramic one that sounds
Oh,
fantastic
cool.
on my resonator.
Oh, that's fun.
That's
That's
the one
fun.
that perfect for that. Because
Yeah.
sometimes there's a weight to it, and as soon as it touches the strings, the tone is
Mhm.
there. It's
Yeah.
like effortless if you got the right tools, right? Like the
What
right
kind of
pick.
resonator do you have? Is it like a dobro where it's the strings are way off, or is it more of a
Yes, yes.
okay, good, cool.
I mean, it's got the faceplate. It's upstairs on another
Yeah,
floor, but it's got the metal plate and it's a wooden body because
yeah,
the other one is too heavy and too cold for me. So
yeah.
there are limitations, and I've never liked any kind of guitar, whether it was a resonator or a regular guitar that was, uh,
Off
stock head
balance. Yeah,
heavy or bottom heavy. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't want to be having to use your energy
yeah, yeah.
to support the thing. You want to
Right.
be able to just play it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think, yeah. I think I'm
But then the next thing would be, what kind of pickups do you actually like? Because Seymour Duncan makes some killer pickups.
yeah, right. Oh yeah, sure, sure.
He's fabulous.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
every time I say, "Well, what should I put in this guitar?"
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
ships me some
Duncan.
pickups and I go, "Oh my
Yeah,
god, these are amazing."
those are amazing. I think, I think a resonator guitar. I actually don't own a resonator guitar, which is surprising because I love that sound. Actually,
Yeah.
T-Bone was here last week, or was it earlier this week? No, I guess last Thursday or Friday.
Oh,
Um,
sweet.
and he just made a new record. He wrote the whole thing. He said he wrote it in 1 month and he recorded it the next month, and now he's putting it out. So he
That
played
rock.
a bunch of tunes for me, and and some of it has, is him playing on a resonator guitar, but it's not, not with the strings way up, but just a 6 string. You can do fingerstyle on and fret it, normally, but it's such a
So
cool sound. I love that sound so much, man. It's
it
just,
really had the resonator
yeah,
uh
it's got that
top
resonator vibe to it,
head,
and the tone
because
to
you
it.
can play slide on a regular acoustic too.
Oh yeah,
That's a
yeah,
different.
of course, yeah, yeah. But no, he
But you
wasn't playing
recorded you
slide
recorded
on
so
it.
many guitar players.
Yeah.
You know different pickups. You know which ones you
Oh
like.
yeah.
So what kind do you want in there? Because you can put anything in a Strat now.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just thinking, I'm taking a poll of all my guitar player friends because some of them like, some of them like certain custom shops, that are making strats that are, that they just swear by, and others, like and Fender themselves, man, are making so many different
Oh yeah.
models now. It's pretty amazing, I mean, I just bought a bass. I bought this a few years ago, bought this bass right here that's um it's kind of a combination jazz bass and P bass at the same
Yeah, mine
time.
too.
Oh man, those are such great
From the custom
instruments.
shop, right?
And again, not that expensive, I guess made in Mexico, but man, it's a great bass. It's like the best bass I've ever had.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And
Yeah.
I owned a 63 P bass for a while, which is awesome. But in terms of just a practical gigging recording bass,
Yeah.
this one's better. I mean, you can get
You
that
need the
active
right
pickup
tool.
sound, you can get the P bass sound, it's just got so much variety of tone.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. So cool.
Very cool.
Let me ask you about production things. I
Yeah.
thought that over the last 10, 20 years that I wasn't listening to enough popular music. I was only getting it through my students, which is a wonderful way to get it because
Yeah, yeah,
they
sure.
come in so passionate and so excited about
Yeah,
something. I go, "What are you listening to?"
yeah,
And they, all this life comes to them. I listen to what they're saying, and
right.
then they play me some examples. And okay, maybe it's not giving me goosebumps, but I love their connection to it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah,
really
yeah,
opens a door for me.
yeah, yeah.
And yet, if I'm hungry, none in very few recent things have been feeding me.
Hmm.
So when I
Mm.
listen to things, I'm like disappointed, or where's music going, or where's something new that I can really sink my
Yeah,
teeth
yeah,
into.
sure, sure.
And I've realized that a lot of it has to do with the production techniques. Like
Hmm.
there are some
Interesting.
producers that are like wanting to put their mark on everything,
Yeah, yeah.
where it kind of skews what the band was doing, although I don't know originally what the band was doing. And
Right,
then
right.
some tunes where that producer makes that song something that it wasn't. Like if you
Yeah.
listen to the dry tracks of Instant Karma, you're
Uh-huh.
like, okay, nice song. But then you hear what Phil Spector did to it, and it's a hit record.
Yeah,
And
of
the
course.
same with Bob Clearmountain with Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
listen to the
sure.
dry tracks, and it sounds like Bruce is working too hard and the band's not supporting him. As soon as Bob gets a hold of it and gives it that killer snare,
Yeah, yeah,
it like comes to life.
yeah,
But some of
absolutely.
these other tunes aren't doing it. So what happened was some older tunes came on my playlist, and all of a sudden I was like in tears, going, "Wow!" Because it was real instruments, real musicians, real players, real songs, real
Right.
beautiful harmony, fantastic chords. I was like, "Oh, you know, oh right, like
Yeah, yeah.
I love that stuff." So it's hard to get away from it. And
Mhm.
some of the production techniques that are being taught in all these online forums, I'm so thankful for all those forums because I
Yeah.
wanted that kind of teaching my whole life.
Oh, I know,
You know,
right? Yeah. It's such a
but
it's
some of
such a
them don't fit the songs you're working on, and then you realize, oh,
right, right. Well, that's always the case. I mean, I was, from teaching production for all these years, it was
right.
always funny whenever we'd have a visiting artist come. Um, first off, half the time they would say all the same stuff that we're saying every week, and it was so funny to hear the students go, "Oh man, to say the stuff that you've been saying to them all semester," and it was like,
That's how it always is.
"Oh, Bob Clearmountain said this." It's like, yeah, right, okay, yeah, he did. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad you finally heard it.
Yeah. Well,
But
because you know what it is. That's the synapse connection being made.
right,
Like,
exactly.
we don't know how many times we have to hear
Hear
the
it
new
before,
idea or the new concept or
right.
try the new
Yeah,
riff.
so in a way,
You
we've
have
got
to
them
make
ready
that
to hear it.
groove deep
Yeah,
enough, and
yeah,
until that light bulb goes off, they're not even hearing what you're
yeah.
saying.
Yeah, they're
Until the
myelinating it,
music's made.
when we're saying it, and then yeah,
But yeah, it happens to
singing
me all the
this
time.
stuff. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned Born in the USA because that was recorded right downstairs,
Oh yeah.
and Bob and I have been getting pretty close in this last since I took over the studios here, and
Awesome.
he's been here a bunch, helped us get our Atmos system, kind of specced out, and he's been doing something. He's such a sweetheart, man. Him and
I
him and Betty are
know.
just the best people. But yeah, you're right, man. I mean, it's Bruce is just on 10, all the time, and his, you know, and that's how he
You can't
does it.
overplay a guitar, otherwise it sounds terrible, like rubber bands. Like because
Yeah, yeah,
string,
yeah.
right? But you have
But
to
the
bring in that.
yeah, the band has to rise to the level that to reach what he's doing. That's so interesting. But anyway, where were we going with this? We were going. Oh, you're
I was
talking
asking
about
about the
music.
different production techniques that have changed over the decades and how
Yeah.
much involvement each person's getting and how much credit they're getting. Like a lot of them are vying for like we're also the co-songwriter, and there's like nine
Well,
people getting credits on a song.
yeah, I mean that's one of the main thing that's changed is and we have a master's program here in songwriting and production that we put up, and my concept from the beginning was let's represent how most songs are written today, which is
Well,
not that somebody goes off by themselves
by
like you
committee.
like you and I. Yeah, but that almost sounds pejorative when you say it. It's not. It's if you want to be a songwriter today and you want to be successful, you need to know how to collaborate, and you're going to be in a room with a beat maker and a producer and a top line writer and the artist, and you need to be able to know how to compromise. You need to be able to know how to contribute, how to
Yeah.
find what's needed, and all that. So we built and it's not like it's 50% of the industry now in terms of popular music
Yeah.
is written that way. It's like 99.9%. It's like
That's the
um
problem.
well, I disagree. I don't think it's a
Well,
problem.
it could be either way, right? Because it could be too many cooks spoil the broth, and it could be the greatest
Yeah,
thing you've ever heard. But it
right.
depends on the team,
It does totally depends on
like
the
it always
team
has,
and how ready they are, and
and
also
how well
a
they
lot of people
complement
get
each other.
what's that.
How well they complement each other. Can they
Yeah,
all move into a direction like a film corporation, not a
right,
corporation, but I mean a film team? When you see all the credits at the end of a film,
right.
it's incredible that they can keep
Yeah,
that vision
yeah. No,
together.
yeah, it is. And
Hundreds of people.
a lot of songs, go through stages too. They'll send it, they'll have an original group of 3 or 4 people who get it to a certain place, and then they may send it to another team to do some stuff on it, and then they may send that back, and stuff like that. And sometimes it turns out great, and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm
Mm.
actually I think music is great. I think popular music is the best it's ever been.
I
I
think pop music is the greatest genre
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
I do.
all the styles.
Yeah, exactly. But you and I have both been around long enough to know that even, you know, I remember even in the 70s, everybody said, "Oh man, music sucks now.
Yeah.
Music sucks. It's terrible, man. All this disco shit, it sucks, man." And it's like, and all this, and the same in the 80s. "Oh man, music sucks. It used to be good, man. Back when the Beatles were out, that used to be good, but now music sucks." The thing is that whenever you're listening to popular music, you know, only 90% of it is not the best 10%.
Right.
And the best 10% is the only thing we're going to remember.
Right.
It's like you go back to the 70s and you look at all the stuff that was on the charts, like Disco Duck and just all the crap that was on the charts. Yeah, most of it did suck. But that was also, it was also when, Paul McCartney and Wings were making great records, and Zeppelin and the
James
Stones
Taylor,
and
Carly
James
Simon,
Taylor, and
Fleetwood
so
Mac,
yeah,
Stevie
the top,
Wonder.
the top 10% was great,
Yes.
you know,
Chicago.
and it's the same now. The top 10% is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's such great music being made right now. Is there a
So
lot of
cool.
crap? Yeah, absolutely. But there's always a lot of crap.
Always been.
There's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
always a lot of crap. So,
That's a great point.
I,
Great
I
point.
I feel like music is I think it's actually better in terms of just because there's so much, as you were saying at the beginning, everybody is making music now. So there's so many surprise people coming out of nowhere,
Yeah.
like Lil Nas X and people like that. I mean, probably no way he would have wound up, being a superstar back in the 80s or the 90s or the early, before social media. But
Maybe
man,
now. Yeah.
talent, I mean, what an interesting artist,
That's
and
so great.
yeah. So I don't know.
Well, there were a lot of people who, never even performed live that made it, even back in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, sure.
There were artists that we heard of in those days. They're like,
I mean, there are so many one-hit
even
wonders,
Steely Dan didn't make it from touring, so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So there's so many different ways.
yeah. And you
But
think,
making the music to me
mhm,
is the thing, not
yeah,
even making it. It's like the music is the thing. And
yeah,
like
sure.
the blessing and the coolest part about it is getting to play with the toys and make the music,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah,
Let me ask you though, like this Atmos system or any surround system,
yeah.
what are you capturing the final mix on? Because I used to have an Acura with the ELS
Mm,
Elliot Scheiner
right, right,
system.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And me and Dave Moulton were trying to figure out how to capture my 5.1 mixes in
Right.
Logic, put it on something that I could play in my car. There were so few things to play in the car.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to actually be able to put it on to something that you could play back, and at this point, um, I
Other
think
than
that,
the home
what
theater
what
system.
you what most people mix down to is just, the requisite number of channels in back into Pro Tools. I mean, that's the typical thing that people do, and that's they turn that in, and then that gets mastered, and it gets encoded into the algorithm. And of course, there's ways that you can listen through the algorithm because that changes it. And yeah, immersive. I love immersive stuff, man. We do, like, tomorrow I'm producing a music video using the scammer right here. The Jaunt one, which has got 24 8K cameras built in, and
Nice.
we mix into the immersive formats for that. And actually, the new Apple Vision Pro coming out, we're excited that that's finally here, because we've been anticipating that once Apple gets into the headset game, that's going to move things forward, because that's the best way to to enjoy that stuff. You can watch it on your phone, and you can watch it on your computer and scroll around and all that, but it's not the same as actually having one of these guys. um but this is like the Quest 3, I guess. And it's, we're shooting in super high res here,
Yeah.
and it's very blurry by the time it gets into this, just because of the limitations of the playback device.
Yeah.
um but anyway, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to do I think the car check in Atmos. It's the funny thing, I have a lot of mixed feelings about immersive. I mean, I love immersive, and what you and I have been around long enough to remember, all the promise and excitement around 5.1 that wound up, you know, not materializing, unfortunately, for the music industry, at least.
Yeah.
Um, and what's different this time is that from the get-go, you can, what is it, 85, 90% of people listen to music now on headphones. And you can do immersive in headphones. You can, obviously, Apple does the Dolby Atmos, but there's a lot of different immersive formats that'll just go to headphones. And then the rest of the people, I've got a sound bar in my apartment, that's a Bose
Yeah,
sound
I have
bar. It
one.
does Dolby Atmos, and it does all sorts of crazy stuff with phase and everything,
Mm,
and stuff around the room. So you don't have to set up a 5.1 system or an Atmos system to enjoy it as a consumer.
you
Uh,
just have to buy something that it's been encoded, like a film has it in it. But I
yeah,
can't still do my own mixes from Logic into something that I can play
right.
on
Yeah.
it.
I think
That
basically,
that's the important part for a creator, though, is like I can make my surround mixes. I can set up 5 speakers and put things in all kinds of
mhm,
places, and that's so fun. But I can't capture it and listen to it again. I have to always listen to it in here.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear you.
Right? That still hasn't changed.
No, there is a you can encode it. There is an encoder, and I think I don't actually do this because I listen in headphones a lot. Here's the thing,
I
it's
love
funny
headphones.
because we,
I have
we
a lot
came
of
up,
very
everybody
nice
saying
headphones.
don't mix in headphones. For Atmos, again,
Yeah,
almost 100% of the people who are going to listen to it are going to listen in headphones.
yeah.
So, it's the same idea. Everybody bought NS10s because everybody had bookshelf speakers. Okay, nobody has bookshelf speakers anymore. Everybody's listening in headphones. So if you're not mixing in headphones, what I usually do when I'm mixing now, if I'm checking mixes, is I have a pair of Bose, and I have a pair of AKGs, and I have a pair of Beats, and I have
Yeah.
a pair of, I have my Apple earbuds. So I basically listen in like 4 or 5 different pairs of headphones, and that
Mhm.
gives me an idea of how it's going to translate for different people, uh,
Yeah.
because most people are now listening on headphones, which is, and now that I live in New York, I don't even have a car, so I don't do a car check anymore.
Oh, that's really lucky.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you have to hop on buses and trains and planes to get here,
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah,
or
absolutely.
rent a car.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Zipcar is convenient, but it's easy to.
Well, I remember Cindy Brown saying, if you're gonna listen to music in a room, you have the option to pay attention to it or not. But as soon as you put headphones on, you're like going into the music.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I like that.
And from when I was a kid, I always loved listening to music in
Oh yeah,
headphones,
man.
and I'm always checking my mixes and in doing a lot of the mixing on the headphones because I specifically love to put things in specific places, and
Yeah,
that whole stereo image,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm that's part of my
Well,
painting,
you
right?
should. Yeah, man, you should totally start mixing in Atmos. And you can do it in Pro Tools. You can just do it as there's an add-on, like a plugin, that you can do to mix in Atmos. And it's, what's great about it is it really does, just like 5.1. It was so much fun to mix. I started teaching
Mhm.
that at Berklee. I was the first person to teach remixing in 5.1, and immersive, and it was always so much fun because all of a sudden there's so much more real estate,
Yes.
open to you. And in Atmos it's the same thing, and you even have height now, and not only just around you, but you can put things higher or lower, or whatever. And I mean, the tough thing about mixing, and what makes it challenging and fun, but it's also, it's what's hard, is that you've usually got 100 pounds of dirt to fit in a 50-pound bag. You've got, so you've got to be carving out space for the vocal EQ wise
Right.
and everything else, and trying to get everything out of the way of each other. Once you get into immersive, it's like, it's like having a family with 5 kids, and you've been driving around in a two-door car, and all of a sudden you have a minivan or something like that. It's like, oh man,
Nice.
plenty of room. We got room for everything. So
That's super cool.
yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
Wow. So what do you think your secrets are, or your way of thinking about things to keep yourself inspired, passionate, happy,
Yeah.
sustaining you all this time through all these cool things?
Oh
What
man.
are the things that do that for you?
Um, Good question. Good question. I think being just trying to follow your curiosity, like you were talking about before, I mean,
Yeah,
it's I think it's so important. I think the
learning new
longer,
things.
yeah, the longer I'm on the planet, the more I think, if there's something that's getting my attention and kind of saying, hey, check me out, um,
Mm.
just listening to that, respecting that, honoring that is, I think,
And that's probably why it benefits us so much that we have so many, it seems like diverse interests or compromising interests, and yet they're expansive.
yeah,
Because if I get tired of uh, trying to figure out what the lyrics should be, I could go play drums, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And if
exactly.
I'm tired of drums, I can go back to the mandolin or the ukulele or the
Mhm.
bass or
Right.
and of course digital recording DAWs. You can be working on several songs at once. It's not
Yeah,
everything's up on the mixer and you're waiting for that last idea so you can
yeah,
finally mix.
yeah,
You know, there's always something. There's always new software to learn. There's always something deeper to understand with your plugins, a new piece of gear.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, it's
yeah.
just it's fascinating to be us,
It
really.
is. It is, man. It's a
I
lot of
wouldn't want to be anybody else, you know.
it's so much fun, man. Yeah, and yeah, I think you hit on the head. I think trying to find more things to be inspired by, and just taking in new experiences. Living in New York has been a huge, huge, just inspiration to me the last 7 years. There's just so much amazing music. Like I was talking to you, about the other day, walking by that disco
Mhm.
show, and just going, damn, yeah, I gotta write a disco song, man. Um,
That's great.
um, there's just so much. There's music on every doorstep, man. There's these guys that hang around the just in this block here, um, who they're just out on the street every day, and they have little speakers. That's the other crazy thing about living in New York now, is that, not only do people, most people either have headphones or they actually have some sort of speaker on their bike or somewhere that they're carrying around with them,
I've
and
seen
they're
this.
sharing their music with all of us, which sometimes is annoying and sometimes is great. But these guys, I've dubbed them. I call them the board of trustees, because they're always out there, and one of them usually has a speaker that he's playing music through, and he's got a mic, so he's on there rapping and or singing, and then there's bongos, there's shakers, there's just all sorts of instruments, and they're just going at it, man, and it's so much fun. It really
It's
is.
life.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
plaything.
Exactly, exactly. Very
That's
cool.
super cool.
Yeah,
Super, super
yeah, it's
cool.
really fun.
Wow.
So yeah.
This has been amazing. I'm just so thrilled that you said yes, and
Oh
thank you
man.
so much for spending some time with me
Oh
today.
dude, it's just really fun to hang with you. I mean, it's been, yeah, we should
Well, it
do,
always has been in
yeah.
person, so it's been a long
We
time,
need to
but
do a project together, man. We should write a song together. We should
I would love to. And you
yeah.
probably have another 16 people you'd put it through to help finish it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Well, see, I don't actually write that way, but I know,
okay, yeah, neither do
put it
I.
this way, I know a lot of people who do, and it's very interesting. Like you probably know Will Wells, right? He was a Berkeley alum from 15 years ago. I don't know. He was a student of mine, and he's very much in that world. He executive produced both of Anthony Ramos's
Mm.
major label records, and Cynthia Erivo's new record, and the process is that they'll go down to Miami for like 2 weeks, and they'll set up a whole bunch of writing appointments with all these different
Mm.
writer producers, and and it's about, for the executive producers, about kind of curating who's in the room, and um and
Baby
finding,
gone, I'm tired of you.
yeah,
And you come in now.
finding those writer producers, and then they usually have some sort of a posse, or people that they collaborate with and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. And then here, like just the other day, Nile Rodgers was back for a week writing, and oh gosh, who was he writing? It wasn't The Weeknd, but it was somebody like that. It was the guy that wrote Single Ladies, or co-wrote Single Ladies for Beyonce, which is an amazing tune, by the way. The chord progression on the bridge is just like, how did you come up with that? But so they were in there writing for a week, and and had various collaborators coming in. And actually Nile is kind of, in a way, if you think about it, he was kind of at the beginning of that whole idea of having, writing with an artist, having the artist, whether it was Madonna in the early days, or Cyndi Lauper or whatever, of not just having them go off by themselves like James Taylor would do and write a whole bunch of songs and then, bring it in and record them, but actually
Right.
writing with them and
Nice.
bringing in, like Bernard and other people to co-write, so a lot of those records that he made here, those really famous, records that he had a, good 10-15 year run here, just, with Sister Sledge and LaBelle and all these groups, that was kind of the beginning of, okay, let's get together and kind of produce the track and write the song at the same time with multiple
Yeah.
cooks in the kitchen, kind of doing
Yeah.
it. And I totally admit it's gotten to a ridiculous place where, on a Beyonce record, there's like, there's 11 writers on this song, but a lot of that is just, if you're in the room and you're contributing a little bit, they'll go ahead and give you some credit. There's probably, most of those records were mostly written by two or three of those people, but there's a
The
lot of,
Beatles used to have a lot of help, I
oh
mean,
yeah,
they're cutting a day in a life and they don't have a word. Now they know how many it takes to fill the Albert Hall. And one of the
right.
texts was about Phil, and Paul would say to Mal Evans, what else can we say here? And Mal would say, sky of blue and sea of green. Or Mal also came up with watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there. Those were Mal Evans lines. Now he really should have gotten some
He
co-credits.
should. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I mean, George Martin probably should have gotten some writing credit or some publishing credit on some of those songs too.
I
For
know, like the arranger, that's the whole thing.
yeah, yeah,
Arrangers make and break the whole thing too. So it's like definitely they should have gotten some credits and certainly some points. And uh,
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And I guess that's kind of the good thing about this new paradigm. And I, it's got its ups and downs, but the
no
fact
system
that
has been perfect. Yes, they haven't come up with a perfect system in a while. Yeah,
exactly. But
I'd have
if
to
you
go to
think
another
about,
planet for that.
yeah, yeah, if you, well, first off, it's the industry just changes all the time. So it does feel, it feels like, the way that I grew up with it was the way that it was probably always before that, but of course it wasn't. But
Right.
but I
It
remember
was
when
the
I
skill
was
building.
growing up, it was the writer, it was, I remember being taught, you can copyright the melody and the lyrics, and that's it. You can't copyright a chord progression, you can't,
Right.
all this other stuff. Of course, now all that has been totally challenged, and that's no longer true. um but if you think about it, that's why,
Mm.
Bono and the Edge are super super rich, and the other two band members don't get to participate in the songwriting. But if you think
Yeah.
about it, maybe they should, because they brought those songs in, and they they contributed their parts, and the drum parts and the
Yeah.
bass parts are integral to the record and the success of the song. And today, if you're in the room and you're coming up with the drums and the bass, you're a producer, you're a co-writer, you are a co-writer. I mean, that's the and I think that's
Wow.
really a good thing. I think that's actually, that's fair,
Yeah, that's
um
pretty helpful.
yeah. So, but at the same time, there's also, a lot to be said for people, writing songs on their own by themselves, coming up with a singular vision and being able to wear all these different kind of hats as well. That can be super fascinating as well, to see what people come up with, more in their, in their own kind of come out of their head. I kind of think of it like writing a novel.
Mm.
um writing short stories and novels has always been an art form where the technological bar is very low. You don't have to have a bunch of gear to do it.
Mm,
You could,
right, right.
if you had a typewriter, that was fine. And if you had just even a
And
yeah, a pen and paper, you could do it. The nice thing is now I think we're hearing from way more people because the tools have gotten much more ubiquitous.
mm,
It's like in the 70s, if you wanted to make a multi-track record, you actually had to come to some place like Power Station because
right.
multi-tracks were not ubiquitous. Like, now everybody can do it on their laptop and most everybody has a laptop. So in a way, I think it's cool because we're hearing from a lot more people who might not have been able to participate back in the day.
It always comes down to the final product. It doesn't matter how many people made it. Do you like it? Does it
Yeah.
move you? Do you feel something from it? It doesn't matter how much equipment you've used. Did you
Yeah.
capture a great performance?
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, none of that stuff really matters. In fact, if it includes more people to get paid, that sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does. It does. And the artist is sharing in the well, that's the other interesting thing is that, one of the reasons I think we're in this position is that the artist always wanted to participate in the writing and publishing, which again is fair, I think. So, a lot of times they will participate in those, right? But, not every artist, just because you're a great singer and you look great and you dance great doesn't mean you can write. So, but if
Right.
you're there in the room, you can say, yes, this rings true to me. Yes, this is something I'd like to say. You can, you're working with people who are writing with you and for you, in a way you can come up with, way more interesting stuff like Avril Lavigne's first record. I mean,
Mm.
that was, she wrote with that songwriting trio. Um, and those songs are so well crafted and 18, 19 years old or 17 or whatever she was, she never would have come up with songs as well crafted as she did. But because she was writing with these veteran writers, that it was
Oh.
still able to be like Skater Boy and stuff that would come out of a teenager's head, but it was really well crafted and well produced and all that kind of stuff too.
Super.
Yeah. Anyway.
Wow. What's a typical day like for you now in New York City?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I have a typical day. It's
You're not bored, put it that way.
yeah, no, I'm not bored. I mean, my day gig takes a lot of time. So I'm running the campus down here and running the studios and
Mm.
I've got a great staff, so that's good. So, this last week I've been hiring new people, which is always exciting and that's really great. And but we have it never gets old, the studio part.
No.
We actually my office was commandeered yesterday. We actually rented we had rented all the rooms and we rented my office out yesterday. So yesterday I was a nomad. We're doing the last 3 days we've had a company here shooting a documentary about Lilith Fair.
Oh, cool.
And so we've had, everybody from the Indigo Girls to Natalie Merchant, um, oh, well, let's see, just most everybody who was involved with Lilith Fair has been in
Oh,
Studio
cool.
C and Studio B, and then in my office, and
Oh,
Suzanne
wow.
Vega, and just running into everybody in the hall. And it's been great. And then the documentary crew that does it too. This is like their third or fourth doc here, and they're just total sweethearts. I mean,
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
they're just such good people. So then we've been doing a lot of that. We do all the music for a lot of HBO, Netflix,
Right.
Apple TV stuff. We do Only Murders in the Building, Marvelous Miss
Oh,
Maisel,
cool.
Succession, all those things. And then we do all the Broadway cast albums too. So,
Yes.
just about all,
You've done Hadestown.
yeah, yeah. I think we did Hadestown. Yeah, we did. No,
That's
we did. That
fantastic.
was before we took over the studio. But yeah, Hadestown was done here. Um,
Wow.
all the current musicals, 4 of the 6 Grammy nominated cast albums were done here this year. Um,
Wow.
and so that's that's great, including Max Martin. Actually, Max Martin, he has this great musical on Broadway right now called And Juliet. And
Oh, right.
it's surprising how good it is, because it's a what they call a jukebox musical, and we do a ton of those. And there was a Tina Turner show for recently, and Neil Diamond has been in and done one, and
Oh,
and
wow.
Carole King of course had hers, and it's cool, but a lot of times building a show around a catalog of songs is
Mm,
is a little can be tricky.
sure.
It's not necessarily a recipe for good storytelling, but sometimes it is. And I was really impressed with and Juliet. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. It was really
Oh,
funny,
that's great.
clever, and very, very, just inclusive, and good message and all that stuff. It was really fun. So anyway, so we do a lot of that, and then we have master's programs. We have, like I said, the songwriting and production master's program, which was
Hmm.
designed from the ground up to kind of teach both of those disciplines. And the production discipline we're teaching is more from the point of view of being a songwriter in a and getting a being a really good beat maker. We have some engineering classes, but it's not about you're not ready to go out and engineer a Broadway cast album after that with 30 people in the room, and and all that. But you're really good at capturing a singer, and on up to drums. We do mic up. Everybody learns how to mic up drums and how to do that, and
Okay.
and all. But they also learn Ableton, and and how to use production as a tool for writing, and
Cool.
and Logic as well.
Nice.
So that, and then we have writing design for musical theater, which is really fun. Actually, right now, right downstairs, they're working on we're doing a big showcase tomorrow. We did one last Monday too, or no, not tomorrow, but Monday, because that's the dark day for Broadway. So students, most of them are in pairs, and they're writing these musicals. And then we hire SAG after actors, we hire AFM musicians, we hire a director and a music director for each one of these, and they do a
Oh, sweet.
20-minute version of their musical, a cut down piece of it. And we do it in the Black Box Theater, which has got this huge LED wall, so the sets can look fabulous and change like that. We have full lighting grid with moving lights and everything, lasers and smoke machines, all that stuff. And a really great D&B immersive sound system too. So and then
Wow.
get like a 5 camera shoot of it as well. So they get a really
Okay.
great piece that they can go out and show to people. And then the third masters we have
Amazing.
is live music production and design. So it's studying, learning all about live sound, screens, projection mapping, lighting systems, immersive audio systems, just
Mm,
all the stuff that that's the big growth industry right now in terms of music is live, obviously. And that's and the technology there has changed so radically in the last 10 years that when
mm,
I first got here and I was talking to, everybody about, what does the industry need right now? Almost everybody from, I talked with a bunch of, like the head of production, Broadway production for Disney, and folks at Live Nation, and just all over the place. And everybody was like, man, technology has changed so much in the live music arena now, and
right.
nobody's been trained at that. So everybody, we're just having to kind of hire people and get them to figure it out, because the
Yeah.
systems have changed so much in the last 10 years. And so we're tackling that, taking that as a challenge to try to
Oh,
get current skill sets up, among our students, so they know it's possible, and also just to be able to be comfortable to express ourselves artistically, with projection mapping and LED walls, and
mm,
all the immersive capabilities that you have now. So that's
that's
a lot
so
of fun
cool.
too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can't get bored there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. But anyway, so yeah, so
Fantastic.
Monday, the writing design for musical theater students, are presenting their work, and we've invited tons of folks from the industry. We do 2 shows, and one at 2 o'clock and one at 7 o'clock, and they're both sold out. And then we live stream them, and we had another like 100 people on the live streams last week. And this is without even advertising the live streams. We can't actually advertise the live streams because it's SAG after actors, so it's not like for public broadcast, but you can share it with industry people and mom and dad and all that kind of stuff. So
nice. And there's a podcast or something going on too, right?
Well, we did a podcast for a while. Now we're doing we have a TV show, isn't that quaint, yeah, exactly. Old technology. But we're doing a show in conjunction with the Mayor's Office for Media and Entertainment. Their media arm is called NYC Media. And so we're part of that. So, when we first got this whole thing up and running, we put together this public-private nonprofit partnership, and the city themselves got involved, and they actually were great and provided some funding and all that. And one of our deliverables to them is 12 episodes per year of some sort of quality content, surrounding music. And so what they asked us to do, we'd been doing this podcast called I think the Power Station podcast, and they said, we'd like for you to do that, and we'll call it Inside Power Station at Berklee NYC. So that's what we're doing. So we have we're into the second season right now. The second episode just went up, or was just broadcast. They actually show it on NYC Life, this channel 22 here in New York, and it goes out to everybody in New York and New Jersey, like 22 million homes. But then they also post it afterwards online, and it's been just a hoot, man. We've had all these folks from that have been involved with the studio in various ways. Just had Rob Mathis on last night, and Nona Hendricks before that. We got Paul Schaefer, former music director for Late Night, and actually Louis Cato, who is the current music director for Late Night with Stephen Colbert, took over from John Batiste. And
where do they broadcast it online?
It's online. It's, if you just search for Inside Power Station at Berklee NYC, it pops up. It's on their site. It's on the NYC Media site is where it is. But I've had, like Bob Clearmountain has been on the show, and
I know, I saw pictures. I'm like, where can I see this? And then I thought, I want to see it in New York.
It's pretty easy just to find. Like I said, if you just Google Inside Power Station at Berklee NYC Media, it's on the NYC Media site. We're it's still a little unclear as to whether or not we can start putting it up on the Power Station at Berklee NYC site, our YouTube channel, which we've been having a lot of fun with our YouTube channel and putting a lot of stuff up on that. But we haven't actually, we've just been too busy to ask the question. I think,
well, I can send you this for your YouTube channel if you'd like.
What's that?
I can send you a copy of this for your YouTube channel.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Tell me about this. Who have you interviewed, and what's the when did you
a few friends here and there, but there's some people that I've known forever that have agreed to do it that have surprised me. So we'll see how it happens. I didn't think I was doing a thing. I enjoy creative company, and being a singer songwriter, you can be very lonely throughout the decades, so just having creative conversations, it's like my favorite subject, to talk about the creative process with people that are a little bit aware of what they do or how they do it, or passionate about what they do. It just gets me excited again, and it's fun to try new things. So just a few months ago I was saying too, like, it'd be fun to have a new hobby or something, and all of a sudden this happened. Like, I was just talking to some friends.
Oh, that's so cool.
I think this is only my fourth one, but then everybody's starting to talk about it like it's a thing. Thanks for having me on. I'm like,
that's
having you on what?
Yeah, man. Oh, that's awesome. Good for you. That's fun. Yeah.
Having you on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Now we're talking.
Big time.
So what turns you on now? I wanna know what's other than this,
Mm.
what's your other kind of new thing that's maybe new in the last year or two that's been tripping your trigger and making you, you know?
Well, having an analog console again has been exciting,
Oh,
and
I
then it's
bet.
also been revealing of how fast I got in the box going, "Why am I doing this?" Because my least favorite part is parsing it back out from Logic to the console.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking, all right, maybe I should redo my patch bays and make everything normal and put this in the center and get a new desk. And it's like,
Right.
I want to do that all the time because this is fast for some things and this is good for some other things. And
Right.
I'm just having fun playing with the gear,
Yeah.
writing new songs and playing with new people and making new recordings. I'm always just trying to strive to get better as an engineer because
Yeah.
when I was a student at Berklee, I went from 1978 to 82 and MPNE wasn't a major yet. And they
Right.
didn't
Right.
even have a songwriting major. I think
Yeah.
they had
Right.
like one studio, you know. They didn't have half the gear that
Hmm.
any of us have now. And it's just so exciting, like you said, with the explosion since, I don't know, 2014 or so with all the online places where you can learn. I've learned so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of the things?
Exciting.
What are some of the online assets that have really you feel like you got a lot from?
The best ones for me were
Uh-huh.
PureMix.net and Mix with the Masters. I actually went
Yep.
out to France
Oh,
and saw
right. I remember when
Greg
you did
Wells.
that.
Yeah, yeah, you told me you hooked me up with Richard first to say,
Yeah, that's so cool.
what did you think? Did you go? Did you have? He's like, yeah, I went twice. I'm like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like
it
fun to
was
me,
fun,
man. Yeah, I'd love to get over there, man. You know, we actually filmed a bunch of Pure Mix stuff here maybe 6 or 9 months ago.
Mm.
Not that long, maybe 3 months ago. It all
Oh,
blurs
that's
together.
great.
But
Oh
they
yeah, because you did a whole bunch of Beatle things, didn't you? Weren't they
we've done
reproducing
Beatle
some of the
things. We
stuff?
had you would have loved this, man. We
Oh
had
no, they went to Abbey Road for that.
what's that? Oh, they
They
went to
went to
Abbey Road.
Abbey
Yeah.
Road for that,
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
they?
No,
Yeah,
they were
produced like a
down.
pro is fantastic.
What's that?
Warren Hewitt produced like a pro is fantastic.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all the stuff on YouTube. I mean, there's some great, great teachers out
There's some really good stuff. Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
there really is. Um, but yeah, Giles, before we closed down for the pandemic, Giles brought the new mixes of the White
Revolver
Album,
on the White Album.
and we set that up in studio in one of the studios to be do a big listening party for all the label
Fantastic.
and and press and everything like that. So that was a lot of fun, and hear him, kind of talk through the tracks and what all, um
Awesome.
Bob Clearmountain, you'll get a kick out of this actually. Bob has been doing a lot of Atmos mixing, as you know, and and doing stuff where there isn't, older stuff where the multi tracks are not as, back like during the Beatles days where they would fill up, 4 tracks on a 4 track machine and bounce that over to
Mm.
one more track and and then fill up the other three and all that. Um, so Bob and Betty, as as people do, they were hanging out with oh, what's his name, Jackson, the guy who did the Get Back thing, the
Oh yeah,
um what's his
Peter
name?
Jackson.
Peter Jackson, yeah. Yeah, Peter Jackson was over at their house, and he was telling them about this technology that they developed for Get Back, where they can
Hmm.
just really isolate every single instrument, even if it wasn't multi-tracked in the first place, And
Phenomenal, I know.
so Bob has gotten hooked up with that technology,
Oh
and
wow.
he's been doing a lot of Atmos mixing of older records that, from that era where there aren't multi-tracks,
Yeah,
it's
recorded in stereo or mono and
yeah, yeah, or the original 4 tracks aren't still, available or whatever. But he says it's just
yeah,
astonishing how good it is, and it's
that's
kinda
just
like,
a miracle.
yeah,
I had like 60 hours of the Let It Be outtakes, and they're unlistenable because
yeah,
the volume is like,
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, exactly,
and
exactly, yeah.
you're like, ah, I can't even handle it,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
playing through everything they're talking about. And so this was just phenomenal to be
Oh, I
there.
know, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the good applications of AI, right? Is like
Yes,
to actually go through those archives and make them valuable, make them
yes.
listenable.
Did
Um,
you go to the Sergeant Pepper demonstration that Sir George Martin did at the Berklee Performance Center
you
back in
know, I think I was not there. I remember that you were there. I don't
I
think I
was in the
was there.
third row.
Yeah, I know, and I remember
I
you.
faxed his management company ahead of time and said, "Do you think he'd like to meet some of the faculty?" And got to go in the green room and
I
say hello.
remember
And
that. I remember
Jay
that.
Miller took a picture of him and me. And
Yeah, yeah.
I me- I wanted to give him a cassette of my song "My Norwegian Friend." I had just written it and started tracking it, and I said, "I'm having trouble mixing it." And he said, "Leave stuff out." And
That's
he
such
said,
great advice.
he's like, what was he, 6'4" or
Oh, I
something?
know. Yeah, yeah.
Enormous. And I'm 4'11", right? So I'm standing there and I said, "But I have this tape of this song, and I would just love anybody from the Beatles circle to listen to it because it's my hats off to the Beatles." And he's like, he swoops down into my face and he says, "I'm retired." And he swoops back out and I said, "Maybe you could just listen to it for fun." And he swoops back down in my face again and he says, "Fun takes time." And Giles goes, "I'll listen to it." And Giles puts it in his pocket
Oh, no kidding.
and he gets his dad to sign the In My Life CD for me because they said no autographs. And he's like, "Sign this for Lauren." And he signs it for me. And he says, "Fax me and we'll talk about the cassette." And every time I faxed him, he never got back to me.
Yeah.
And then several years later, the Love album comes out. And 5 of my students come running to me on different days going, "Oh my God, you influenced the Love album. You influenced the Love album." I said, "What are you talking about?" Because I had just heard it in the headphones, like we say, submerge yourself listening,
Yeah, yeah.
listening to beautiful, clean versions with all these wonderful interpolations and, this from this song, that from that song. I was just in tears because it was so clean and so beautiful and so well done. Absolute wonderfulness, right? And they said, "You influenced the Love album." I said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "You gave Giles My Norwegian Friend, the end collage groove that you put in there that has all those guitar quotes of all those different Beatle riffs, because you weren't quoting melodies, you were quoting riffs. You interpolated all those parts and gave him the idea to do that." I said, "Well, people were doing that even in the 60s.
Sure, sure.
What was that called? There were people putting the wrong beat to this tune to that tune,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just making mishmashes of stuff. But yeah, it was pretty interesting that they
That's
thought
cool.
that, and that maybe there was an idea that popped into his
Yeah,
head to
you
try that
never know, man.
saxophone
You
on
never
another
know.
part. You never know.
I got to a few years before that when I was first new at Berklee. I came in '94, I guess.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was 10 years after me.
Yeah, yeah. Can you believe that? Um,
Wow.
but I came in '94 into MP&E, and then I think that very next year in '95 maybe I went over to they sent me over to the UK to help for like I was over there for 2 or 3 months basically. But there was a kind of a sister school. There was a school that Warwick Carter, had a connection to. It was the University of Leeds.
Oh cool.
Their music department. They had a new program at Bretton Hall, which is this kind of. It's almost like a like a what was that? What was that TV show about the old aristocracy? Uh, Anyway, it was this huge old manse, that they built a campus into, and
Oh
they had a
cool.
new popular music studies program. And so they had they were trying to get a music technology thing off the ground. So they sent me over there to help them and teach the first classes and get their labs together and all that. And but while I was there, uh, the royal opening of LIPA came around, the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts that, is in Paul's old high school.
Yes.
And so I finagled myself an invitation to that. Actually, I covered it for Mix Magazine,
Good
and
for you.
also represented Berklee. And so I got invited to this thing, and got to meet everybody. And Paul was there, and George, and the Queen, and all that.
George was there too.
Oh yeah, George was there. In fact, I interviewed George for Mix, and my interview with George wound up
Okay, I've
in
got to
Mix
look for this.
Magazine. Yeah. Um,
Wow,
and it was
you
really
lucky
really
bugger.
fun. So I got to spend about an hour with George,
Oh
interviewing
my God.
on mini disc. I think it was mini disc at the time. Oh no, it probably wasn't. It was probably a little teeny cassette, one of those little
The mini cassettes, yeah.
reporters, things. But it was so much fun, man, getting to ask him
Oh
about
yeah.
all that stuff, and he had such
Wow.
funny and wry comments. He was totally not.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He was so funny. I was asking him about, obviously his time with the Beatles, and I remember, and I don't know, he may have said this to other people too, but it was the first time I'd heard it. But he said something like, you know, people always ask me if success changed the Beatles, and I always tell them they were arrogant sons of bitches the first time I met them.
That's what George Martin would agree to too.
Well,
One of the
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean that's yeah.
the most creative, wonderful, irritating,
Yes, yes.
self-absorbed.
No, that was who I was interviewing, was George Martin. Yeah. He was
Oh, I thought you were talking about George Harrison was there.
no, George Martin. Did I say George Harrison? I'm sorry. The other George. Yeah, George Martin was there. Not George
Oh,
Harrison
yeah,
was not there.
yeah.
George Harrison. When did George pass? When?
2001.
Yeah, 2001. Okay, so he was still kicking. Yeah, but I guess Paul was the only one who had gone to the school as
Yeah, I
an.
would be very surprised that
Yeah,
George
no,
was
it wasn't
there
George
too.
Harrison. It was George
Yeah, it
Martin.
was George
George Martin
Martin.
didn't
Yeah.
come.
Have you been to the Power Station New England? I went to a Neil Dorfman
I have never been
presentation
there.
there.
No, I've never
It's
been there.
gorgeous and it's a little bigger.
In what way is it bigger?
The main room, I think the dimensions, the big dome room is bigger.
Really? I
That's what they say.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. It's just in the middle of nowhere, man. It's it's like
That's the problem.
so funny. But when they built the Studio A here, they didn't use plans. They actually like laid it out. I mean, I've talked to Tony Bon Jovi about this a bunch, and Bob Clearmountain, who had a lot. Bob was, says that what they did is they laid out 2x4s just on it's a concrete floor, and
Okay.
the floor in Studio A is not floating at all. It's just hardwood right on top of concrete.
Wow.
And that's part of the sound, actually. But
Good thing I didn't put a floating floor in here.
yeah, it spent all the money.
I'm on dry lock on top of cement.
Oh, interesting. There you go. That's perfect.
Well, I've got the first floor. The first of it is what is this? The wood, the wood on top of the dry lock on top.
Yeah. So anyway, they got in there. Basically, Tony and two of his kind of hippie carpenter friends moved into this building. Before it was a recording studio. It used to be the power relay station that powered the elevated train that became the High Line in New York, and then it became a TV studio, and they used to record Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall here.
All right. Come on now.
Yeah, and Dark Shadows. They used to make Dark Shadows in this building.
Yeah,
back in the 70s.
School.
But anyway, so they came in and and they laid out 2x4s on the ground to kind of figure out where they wanted everything to be, the control room and the booths and everything. And then they started building, and they did a lot of things where they would build and they would try it out, and they would go, no, I think we should move this wall back a little bit further. And
oh wow.
And so there were no plans, really. There were no definitive plans. There were some plans. And I've actually kind of seen what they had, which kind of bears a resemblance to what they wound up with. But once they had built it, and of course they just started making hits here just right off the bat. So there was some folks from Japan who came over and wanted to buy the plans so they could build a replica in Japan. And Tony was like, yeah, sure, yeah, pay me 50 grand and you're gonna, I'll give you the plans. But he had to hire somebody to come in and measure it up.
Make plans.
And make plans, yeah, because they didn't exist. They didn't exist.
Wow.
But once he did that, he had the plans, and then he was able to sell them to Sonolist as well in Connecticut. And so they built their replica of Studio A. And I think there's maybe one more floating around out there somewhere. I'm not sure, but it's kind of funny that they
besides New England.
Yeah, I think there's
Oh,
one more somewhere else. Maybe in your, who knows if they're even still around, and who knows if the one in Japan is even
oh.
still up and running, or if it's you
I
know,
think people love real recording studios and real gear so much. I don't think it's going to go away forever. You know,
it's actually
they might
coming
be on their
back.
way back.
No, I think
I
it's
think they're on
coming
their way
back big
back.
time.
Yeah.
It's interesting because before the era of the independent studio like Power Station and Hit Factory and Record Plant and all that, all the labels had their own studios. And if you were signed
Right.
to RCA, you recorded RCA. And if you were, depending on who you were,
EMI.
EMI, Columbia, all that,
Yeah.
and they had their own studios.
Atlantic.
Studio labels are building their own studios again, big time. Every label that I know of is building a studio, and two or three of them. One of the reasons I know this is two or three of them reached out to us to see if they could, if they could actually just have a residency, like take, Studio A or Studio C and just kind of have that as their
Oh,
mainstay. And we said no, but they were, they were just checking it out. They're saying we're either going to build studios or we're going to have, get some sort of relationship with a real studio. And
right.
what can we do? We do actually have a relationship with Spotify. We have Spotify studios here in the building,
Oh,
and
sweet.
they're camping out in Studio B. Although we still, our deal is that we still get to use the studio too, and occasionally we'll bump them over into A. We had uh
Mm.
Niall from One Direction did a big thing in Studio A the other day, and we had 150 screaming girls out in front of the of the building. It was pretty interesting.
Oh,
Uh,
that's great.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But yeah, so I see that there's more and more studios being built right now than there has been in decades. And I think you're right. I think people want to be, I mean, it's great. Everybody needs to have their own studio now, but it's also great to be in a space that's really custom designed for music,
Mm.
and and has a creative vibe to it, and just has everything you might need, so you can just get to work and and really.
And if anything's recorded super well and it's absolutely outstanding, it was done by professionals in a professional studio. It's like, unless you're Bob Clearmountain working in this room, it's only going to sound as good as I can know how to do it, So,
Yeah, but that's good enough, I mean, that's the thing, is that
well, yeah,
you
yeah.
know
But what I mean is, like there are a lot of really cool channels. Like Colt Capperrune does a great recording channel
yeah.
on YouTube, and his watchers, I was going to say listeners, are always saying, "Can you start off with tracks that sound bad because our tracks sound bad and show us how to fix them?" It's like you, we really have to get back into having more YouTube videos that teach actual recording techniques and
Yeah, how to capture the
how to
sound in the
play
first
well
place.
and get a good
Yeah. Oh, I
sound
totally
from your
agree.
fingertips down the gain stage, through the amp, through your effects, through to the production,
I
through the mic. I mean, there's just so
totally
many
agree.
places where it can go wrong, and
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
about I don't have a plug-in to fix it. It's about it
right.
wasn't recorded well.
Yeah, yeah. If you can record it well in the first place, you don't have to fix it. Yeah, no, that's so
Yeah,
true. That's
yeah.
so true. I mean, that's the secret right there. I mean, I can't tell you how
So
many people.
that can't go away. We need
Yeah,
that. That's just
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Having something really well recorded. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's always it always always so amused when I see the photos of like there's photos, when we do events and stuff, people come, and there's this one guy who was actually here back in the 70s who was taking some photos, very few photos from the time, but you look at the, Bob Clearmountain, well, actually the artists too, man, David Bowie, they were just kids, man. They were kids. They were the age of our
Oh,
students. They were
yeah.
like, teenagers in their early 20s, and Elliot Scheiner, he's a good friend, and he actually was over in C for, mixing for like a month. He mixes the old school way, man.
Oh, yeah.
He actually he spreads it out across the whole Neve, and he uses flying faders and all that kind of stuff, which is, he's one of the
Love
only
it.
people that still does that, but we still keep the system running. But you know, you know how old he was when he mixed the Moondance record?
He was a kid, right?
He was 19.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He was 19 years old when he mixed the album Moondance for
He's a
Van
genius.
Morrison.
He's
So,
an absolute
he
genius.
is a genius, but at the same time, I feel like, that, you
But he
mixing
studied
your
with
own
Phil
records,
Ramone.
10 times what Elliot Scheiner knew when he was 19 years old. You do. You just have so much more experience. Yeah,
Me now.
absolutely. He was a kid. He'd been in the recording studio for about a year, and he got
Wow.
to mix it because he was Jewish and they needed to do it over Christmas break.
Oh
So
my God.
they said, "Hey, we got to
That's
mix
quite a
this
break.
album over Christmas break. Who's willing to do it?" And he's like, "I'm Jewish. I don't care. I'll do it." So he basically went in and
I'm gonna have
mixed,
to ask him about that.
he mixed Moondance, in a week or two, right around Christmas time, and then it turned out to be this huge. And of course, he did a great job. Elliot's a genius. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna downplay it, but at this point, you've got,
That's amazing.
your ears are so much more mature and you've got so much more experience than Elliot did at 19. Part of it was everything was recorded really well in the first place, and it was
Yeah.
great songs and great performances and great arrangements. And
Oh, he just had to
so
mix it. He didn't cut the tracks too.
I think he cut a lot of it. I think he was
Yeah,
he
that's
was
what I
one of the
thought. Yeah.
tracking engineers as well. I don't
Yeah.
think the whole thing. I think he was,
So,
at the time, he was still kind of an assistant, but he would get into the main chair from time to time.
and he learned to capture everything the way Phil Ramone taught him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pretty
So
stunning.
it's pretty cool, man. I mean, Elliot's he's a national treasure.
Yes, he is. He's already said yes. He's going to have a chat with me.
Oh, that's so cool, man. That's so cool.
I was just teaching guitar lessons one day, and this kid named Matt comes in and
Yeah.
he says, "Well, yeah, my dad's a recording engineer." And I glance over his last name. I go, "Your dad is Elliot Scheiner?" It's like, you know,
Oh, Maddie is such a sweetie, man. He's so
that's
cool.
great.
I love him. He's
Nice.
he's been working with his dad on the car sound systems too.
Oh,
He's
sweet.
they've been tuning those ELS systems,
Yeah, they keep getting better.
for years. Yeah, yeah. That's pretty
Wow.
fun. That's pretty fun. But yeah, Els is, oh man, he's good people, and he's still, man, he's making records. He was in not long ago down in A doing a cast album, and you know
Wow.
he's an
Yeah,
inspiration, man. He is making records.
love him.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's keep making records.
yeah. Let's do it. Let's do, please.
Let's keep rocking till we're like 110 and just keep making music and
You look
spreading all
exactly the same as you
joy.
did when I met you, 29 years ago? You know?
But yeah,
I mean, in some ways, it still seems like just the other day that I got to Berklee, it really does.
yeah.
Um, man, how can that be? How can it be that it's actually been that long? That's crazy.
I don't know. I'm almost teaching there 40 years next year. So
Wow.
yeah.
How have students changed since you started teaching?
Um, I used to be able to uh bring in all kinds of things and all kinds of chords and songs, and people knew what to do and they can play them. But now, because people haven't been using guitars as often as they did like in the 70s, and it not using as many chords as they used to, like many of the students who come in haven't ever experienced anything but power chords or
Wow.
basic triads. So it's very
Wow.
different because, I knew 20 places to play each chord when I got there as a
Yeah.
student. All the bands we mentioned from the 70s, I was playing all their songs and they all used those chords. They weren't jazz chords, they were
Yeah.
just beautiful harmony, that big box of crayons, just more colors to play with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there were a lot of materials that I had learned when I was 9 to 14 with my first teacher, Lou Sabini. And I never brought that stuff in because it was too easy. It's like 9-year-old stuff for
Right.
guitar.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
now that's what we're using.
Wow.
So
That's
it's
interesting.
disappointing in some ways. And then there's always exceptions. So it really just depends on who gets what students.
Yeah.
Berklee's always been a fantastic place to say that they'll take anybody at any level and turn them into a professional musician and teach them the right way. So we love that opportunity, you know. But
Mhm.
all I need is eagerness. I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
willingness and eagerness and desire, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
that equals talent, you know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
if you have a hunger, you can grow. But when they're
Mhm.
disinterested or detached or
Right.
too stoned or, you know, like everything, there's
Yeah,
a too zoned out from the pandemic. And there's a million reasons why everybody's like,
right.
and they're using it as excuses and wearing those as badges, like, I have this problem and I have that problem and I have this problem. And it's like, but maybe you have a thought problem. You know, maybe we can change that. Maybe you can actually get
Mhm.
back to the fun of actually being you,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
right.
not use any excuses to get in the way of your love and amount of money you're spending to be here.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
rock this. Let's really get something together.
yeah.
To
We're in a yeah. Yeah, no, I I find the same thing is true. We're in a very
Mhm.
interesting phase
Okay.
right now where everybody is on the upside, what I think is great is we are focusing a lot more on mental health and and there's a lot more education out there, a lot more people have the vocabulary of mental health and
Mm.
but I do find that yeah, you're right. It's um students are more easily um kind of debilitated, maybe and again, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know, maybe they're, maybe we should have been taking a lot more mental health days all along, but
Well, yeah, I think Europe has it right, right? Isn't it in Italy where they take a 2 hour break in the late afternoon and everybody naps and eats and
yeah.
rests?
I mean, yeah, Spain too, man. When I was in Spain,
Why
lunch
work
is
yourself
two
to death?
hours, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then after, and nobody works overtime over there. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding? Everybody's gone, um,
Mm.
and then goes out for these long dinners and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think we're going
I
through a.
like naps.
Oh, I love naps. Oh my god,
Rests are great and naps. I
naps
mean,
are the best.
check out these guys over here. They've got the two napping right now.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, sweet. Do you have a couch in your studio to where you can take a nap down there, or do you go upstairs to nap?
I just put a futon in the back there,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
that, but you know, no problem to go upstairs and hit the bed, you know.
Yeah, that's good too, man. I used
Or
to,
the catches in the living room.
back when I was doing a lot of before I started at Berklee, especially, and I was doing a lot of music for TV and film. And had Mid-South Recording Studio, I would get my cue already. I would prep the whole cue. I would figure out the tempo map and all that kind of stuff and get all my hits lined up, and it was always very, okay, so then, there's this explosion on bar 3 on beat 4 and then there's this other thing happening there. And I would get the whole kind of thing in my mind and then I would take a nap and I'd
Oh,
call it nap storming. And
that's great.
so many times I would wake up with the cue in my head, it's just like it had kind of worked its way out as I was napping. And I've been a huge, huge fan of napping
Yeah.
ever since
It's
then,
like
you know.
Paul McCartney talks about that little place between sleeping and being awake, whether you're just falling asleep or just
Yeah.
waking up. All these beautiful ideas can come into your head. And I remember I was working on a song called The Sea Road. Um, my friend Kate Chadbourne wrote this poem, and I thought I'm going
Uh-huh.
to surprise her and put her poem to music. And the song had all these beautiful length sentences. And I realized for the first time, oh, this is how Joni Mitchell and John Lennon would do it. They don't want to break up the idea. So that's how you end up with an extra beat or an extra measure.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
was like, how do you write these things in when you're just writing a song and put in
Oh,
on
cool.
purpose an extra thing? It feels weird. But if you're doing it to support the language and you don't want to break up the idea, and I wanted to keep the integrity of her poem, I thought, how am I going to stop this chorus and get back to the verse? And just as I was falling asleep, I heard that it just did a decrescendo and a decelerando, it just gradually slowed down and then had a little pause and with a little breath came back in. And I thought, yeah, just get out of time and come back in.
There
I was
you
like, oh
go.
my God, I got to do it right now. So I came right down in the middle of the night
That's great.
and cut the song because I thought this is flowing now perfectly.
Wow, that's
That's
great.
how to
That's
do it.
great, man. Yeah, that time, yeah, in between sleep and awakeness is
My
it's a
very
magical
favorite
thing.
time. Yeah.
Do you wake up? Do you have first and second sleep? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and then
Oh yeah, yeah, like 5, 6 hours, somewhere
Yeah,
between
yeah,
4 hours. Wake up, get back to sleep,
yeah.
and go
I mean, that
another.
used to, that used to be a thing. They yeah, I mean, you've probably heard that, there was some stuff on NPR about it years ago. But
Really?
apparently back in, in more, medieval times and Renaissance and stuff, the people who were writing back then would all talk about first and second sleep. And people would kind of, of course, everybody was more on the circadian rhythms back then. If once it got dark, you probably
Mm,
went to bed shortly thereafter. But then almost everybody would wake up. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people, and I do this, would wake up at like 3 in the morning and just be
mm,
awake. And so,
wow.
writers would actually get up and they'd go ahead and write for a while, and they'd talk sometimes about this first and second sleep.
Oh,
And
neat.
and I, and it does seem, it's frustrating for me because sometimes I just want to work, sleep through the night and sleep for 8 hours. But often, yeah, after 5 or 6 hours, I'll wake up and I'll
Mm,
be awake, and then I'll, I might get up for an hour or something, and maybe work on something, and then I'll go back to bed for another couple hours or something like that. So
sweet.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, but apparently that's been a thing for a long time.
It's nice to do something with that energy if you've got it, or that
Exactly.
clarity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I get frustrated and then get so mad that I can't fall back to sleep, and that's silly. So
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly.
might as well
Exactly.
use it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
That's
You're right.
so cool.
Hey, well, this
Then
has been so awesome. I do have to start running, man. This has been a fun
I'm
conversation.
late. I was supposed to be somewhere at noon.
Yeah, me too. I got somebody blowing up my phone. Actually, Pat Patterson's in town today, and he and I are gonna
Oh, cool. Tell him
meet.
I said
So
hello.
yeah, I sure will. But man, it's so good to see you, and thanks for asking. And yeah, let's write a song together this year.
I'd love to do that.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Thank you so much, Stephen. This was
So
awesome.
good to see you, Lauren. So good to see you, and take care of yourself, and have a great weekend.
Stay well.
All right, cheers. Bye bye.